For many years, Chad Hiltz, also known as Bad Chad, quietly worked in his garage, smiling for cameras while turning scrap metal and old car parts into stunning dream cars. He believed success wasn't about having expensive tools or materials, but about using what you had and making something great out of it. While the sound of engines and the shine of chrome drew attention, something much deeper and more painful was happening in the background. At 53 years old, Chad finally opened up about something fans had been wondering about for years. What he revealed wasn't about money, fame, or the stress of being on TV. It was something far more personal. When he finally spoke honestly, he said something that shocked everyone. "I'm forced to hide this." But what was he hiding and why? What could make such a bold and fearless man stay silent for so long? Now that the truth is out, it changes the way people see him. Before he became known around the world as Bad Chad, he was just Chad Hiltz, a young man from the small town of Canning in Nova Scotia, Canada. He didn't grow up with money or expensive equipment. Instead, he had big dreams and a deep drive to create. His life wasn't easy. He dropped out of high school and had a rough start in his youth. Many people expected him to live a quiet life, working hard but staying far from fame. But inside him was a rare talent. An amazing ability to build incredible cars out of the most unexpected materials. While most car builders used the best tools and clean parts, Chad used anything he could find. License plates, airplane wings, even scrap metal, and turned them into one-of-a-kind cars. His style was raw, creative, and completely different from anything else. That's what made him special. His big break came when Discovery Channel launched the show Bad Chad Customs. The show wasn't like other car shows that featured huge garages and expensive builds. Instead, it was filmed at his small garage, Hiltz Auto Company, in Nova Scotia. The show followed Chad and his close team, including his partner Jolene McIntyre, as they worked on wild car projects with very limited budgets. People all over the world were drawn to Chad, not just because of his amazing car work, but also because of his wild personality and creative spirit. In 2019, the first season aired internationally and was seen by millions. When production slowed down after the pandemic, Chad and his team turned to social media to stay connected with fans. To his followers, Chad was real and honest. He didn't care about following rules or impressing the industry. He welded old license plates into car parts and turned things most people would throw away into eye-catching designs. He was tough, full of energy, and never tried to be something he wasn't. His style, his straight talk, and his passion made him stand out. But he wasn't just making cars, he was creating a story. A story about a man who came from nothing, broke the rules, and still succeeded. He inspired people around the world who saw him as proof that you didn't need money or fancy tools to chase your dreams. But living up to that image was hard. Over time, the pressure to keep being creative, the stress of filming for TV, and the expectations from his growing fan base began to wear him down. Unlike other TV personalities who eventually fade out of the spotlight, Chad stayed active and open. Everything he did was watched and judged. Every post on social media, every new car, every move he made. Slowly, that started to take a toll on him. The person the world saw, the fearless car builder who never stopped, was struggling behind the scenes. And now that he's shared what he kept hidden for so long, fans are seeing him in a whole new light. The man who made gold from garbage, who gave hope to outsiders and dreamers, is still very human. And what he's been through makes his story even more powerful. Whispers began to spread online. People started wondering if Chad Hiltz, Bad Chad, was burning out. Was the pressure finally getting to him? Some fans noticed that he still had the same creativity and talent, but something about him seemed different. He looked more distracted, less present. The spark that once made him stand out was still there, but it didn't shine as brightly. Then the critics began speaking up louder. While many fans admired his creative ideas, others began questioning his work. Online critics picked apart his builds. Forums mocked his methods. Some even accused him of being reckless or said he was more of a showman than a real craftsman. But Chad didn't stop. He kept building, kept posting, and kept smiling, at least on the outside. What fans didn't know was that he had been hiding something for years. When he finally said the words, "I'm forced to hide this," it felt like the truth shattered the image people had of him. The man fans had admired was real, but he was also hurting. And no amount of welding or car building could fix the weight of what he was carrying. When Chad became known as Bad Chad, it wasn't just a name, it became a symbol. He represented hard work, rebellion, and the idea that anyone could succeed without following the rules. He didn't get famous through slick marketing or help from big companies. It all happened naturally. Every strange weld, every creative shortcut, every daring design helped build the image. He turned trash into treasure, not just in the physical sense but in spirit. He didn't wear fancy clothes or use high-end tools. He once painted with a spoon if he needed to. He would beat rusted metal into shape with nothing but determination. To some people it looked messy, but to many it looked like freedom. He was more than a car builder. He was a story, a symbol of hope for people who felt like they didn't fit into the system. That's what drew fans to him. Bad Chad Customs wasn't just another reality show. It felt raw and real. The garage was small, the team was close, the tools were limited, and the deadlines were always tight. But they made it work. People related to it. Jolene McIntyre once said their biggest strength was showing the real process from start to finish, something other shows avoided. But the thing about becoming a symbol is that people don't want you to change. As Chad got more famous, fans started to expect more from him. They didn't just watch his videos, they measured him against the image they had in their heads. He became the underdog hero, the outsider genius who never sold out. That story meant something to people. But for Chad, it slowly became a trap. To keep being Bad Chad, he had to live up to an idea that was bigger than himself. He had to always be creative, always bold, always perfect. There was no room for bad days, mistakes, or even moments of doubt. The character he played had become larger than life, and the real Chad had to keep up with it no matter how tired or overwhelmed he felt. Started subtly. He missed a few social media posts. His videos got shorter. When people asked if something was wrong, he just joked or brushed it off. But the signs were there. The stress was building. The work never slowed down, and with every new episode or car project, the pressure to impress only got worse. Fans were no longer just watching for fun, they were judging every move. Some praised him, but many criticized him harshly. They called him a hack. Some said his builds were unsafe. Others went after his intelligence, his skills, even his relationship with Jolene. What started as honest feedback turned into cruel attacks. Even then, Chad didn't give up. He worked harder. He made more detailed videos. He added more style, more edge, more intensity. It wasn't just about proving the haters wrong anymore. He was trying to live up to the version of himself that fans had created, a version that didn't allow him to say, "I'm struggling." Behind the scenes, things were getting worse. Chad was mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. But in front of the camera, he kept performing. He became good at hiding what he was really feeling. He smiled when he was stressed. He joked while carrying anxiety and fear. He didn't let people see how much it hurt to get hateful messages, to be judged, and to feel like he was letting people down if he wasn't perfect. He didn't talk about the sleepless nights, the fear of failing, the guilt of not replying to fans, or the frustration of being misunderstood. He just kept going. He built a wall between himself and the world. That wall was made of confidence, sarcasm, and hard work. As long as he kept building and the legend stayed alive, he felt like he could manage. But inside he was falling apart. Living two lives, the man and the myth, was becoming impossible. He could no longer pretend that everything was fine. He couldn't keep saying yes to the image while saying no to his own peace of mind. And then something changed. At 53 years old, Chad started to feel the weight of it all. Maybe it was age, maybe it was time. But he could no longer ignore the truth. The legend of Bad Chad might have inspired the world, but it also came at a huge personal cost. And finally, he's ready to tell his story. Not just the story fans wanted to hear, but the one he actually lived. Maybe it was burnout. Maybe it was just the moment when pretending became harder than telling the truth. Whatever the reason was, Chad finally stopped hiding. The cracks began to show. For a while, he managed to keep the illusion alive. His car builds became even more extreme. The vehicles got more complex. His videos were still exciting and full of energy. But something had changed, and fans with a sharp eye could see it. The first signs were small. In some episodes of Bad Chad Customs, Chad seemed more on edge. He would lose his temper in the middle of a project. His eyes looked tired and worn out. He still joked around with his partner Jolene, but it didn't feel as natural or easy as before. On social media, he wasn't posting as much. And when he did, his captions often hinted that he was struggling or feeling drained. At first, fans just assumed he was going through a normal rough patch. Every creative person burns out sometimes, right? But as time went on, people started to worry more seriously. Was Chad okay? Was the pressure of managing a TV show, running his shop, and staying popular finally too much for him? Then the criticism began. Online forums, especially places like Reddit and small car building communities, started tearing his work apart. People commented on his welding skills and how he ran his business. Some even said his builds were dangerous. Others made fun of the fact that he didn't have any formal training. One user said, "Bad Chad is more of an artist than a mechanic. It looks cool, but I wouldn't drive it." And it didn't stop there. Some critics made it personal. They attacked his attitude, his ego, even his relationship with Jolene. Rumors started to fly about things going wrong behind the scenes at Hiltz Auto Company. Anonymous accounts posted strange comments claiming to know what was really happening. When Jolene began posting less often on Instagram, people started to wonder if there had been a breakup, or if Chad had had a breakdown, or maybe both. Chad never replied directly to any of these rumors. That wasn't his way. But in some of his videos, his smile didn't look real anymore. His eyes looked like they were searching for something off camera, like he was distracted or worried. The truth was, Chad was struggling badly in private. The hate mail wasn't just an occasional thing anymore. It had become constant. Some people accused him of being a sellout. Others attacked his personality, his appearance, and even his past. A few messages contained vague threats. At first, Chad tried to ignore them. Then he started hiding them, from his fans, from Jolene, even from himself. He kept the worst ones in a drawer in his workshop. That drawer slowly filled up with pain, one message at a time. He told himself he was strong enough to handle it. He said it didn't bother him. He believed he could build his way past the hate. But deep inside, it hurt much more than he admitted. The more he tried to push those feelings down, the more they affected everything else. His creativity, his focus, his patience, and even his happiness. The thing he had once loved the most, building, started to feel like a burden. Each car wasn't just a creation anymore. It was like a shield he had to hold up to protect himself from the criticism. He wasn't just trying to build something cool, he was trying to prove something. But no one can wear a mask forever. Eventually it becomes too heavy. And for Chad, that moment finally came. When he broke down, fans were shocked, not just by what he said, but by how long he had kept it inside. He didn't make a big announcement or some dramatic reveal. One night, he simply posted a quiet video online. Just him, alone in his garage. No flashy outfits. No big emotions. Just a man who looked tired and older, like he had been carrying a heavy secret for years. In that honest moment, Chad showed a version of himself that hardly anyone had ever seen. Vulnerable, worn out, and emotionally drained. After decades of pretending to be okay, always pushing forward with grit and confidence, Chad finally admitted the truth. He had been suffering in silence. The reason? Years of constant hate mail, cruel comments, and personal attacks. It had started slowly, just a few angry messages after each new episode aired. First, he brushed them off. He thought it was just part of being on TV. But over time, the messages increased, and they got meaner. What started as criticism about his car builds turned into personal insults about his intelligence, his looks, and his private life. To cope, Chad created a habit. He would write down or print the worst messages and lock them in that drawer. It became his private place to hide all the pain, the things he didn't want anyone to see. Not the fans, not his co-workers, not even Jolene. That drawer became a symbol of everything he had tried to ignore. But the weight of it had finally become too much. And when he opened up, the world saw not just the man behind the myth, but the price he had paid to be him. Chad Hiltz felt a lot of pressure to always act like the fearless, tough guy that fans of Bad Chad had come to love. He believed that if he showed how much he was actually hurting, people would see it as weakness. So he kept it all inside. He smiled for the camera, kept building cars, and acted like everything was fine. But the emotional pain didn't go away just because he ignored it. That pressure slowly started to affect his creativity. The anxiety crept into his work. His face began to show how tired he really was. The joy he once felt from turning scrap metal into unique cars was being replaced by a constant feeling of stress and duty. He wasn't just building cars anymore. He was building a wall to protect himself from the criticism and harsh comments. Eventually, that silence became too heavy to carry. So Chad did something rare. He posted a quiet video where he finally opened up. No drama. No big scene. Just honesty. He admitted that for years he had been overwhelmed with negative messages, and instead of talking about it, he kept it all inside. He thought that being strong meant staying silent. But it was actually hurting him more. His story was about more than just his own struggles. It showed how hard it is for public figures, especially ones known for being tough, to admit they're struggling. In today's world, being vulnerable is often seen as failure. People like Chad are expected to be unshakable. But when they're not, they end up suffering alone. Chad's decision to finally speak up broke the image that fans had of him, but it also forced them to rethink what they really expected of him. There wasn't a perfect ending to that video. No neat solution. Just a man deciding to stop pretending, even if it meant letting some people down. And in that moment, the real Chad stepped forward. Not perfect, not bulletproof, just human. When Bad Chad Customs first aired on the Discovery Channel, Chad Hiltz quickly went from being a small-town builder in Nova Scotia to an international star in the world of custom cars. The show's concept was different from anything else. Chad had no formal training. He used scraps and junk to create wild, one-of-a-kind vehicles. No big sponsors. No fancy tools. Just talent, hard work, and vision. Viewers loved it. They were drawn to Chad's unusual style, his bold creativity, and the fact that he didn't follow the rules. His builds might not have been perfect, but they had character. So did he. That authenticity made him stand out from all the polished car shows already on TV. The show grew fast and gained fans around the world. But behind the scenes, things were changing. As the series became more successful, producers wanted more control. The filming became more structured. Storylines were planned. Scenes were res-hot. Even casual conversations were redone to sound clearer or more dramatic. The spontaneous charm that made the show special began to fade. Chad, who had always loved the freedom to create and experiment, started to feel boxed in. As his on-screen brand grew, the real person behind it was wearing out. So, Chad started to put more focus on YouTube, a place where he had more control. He had posted videos there before, but now it became something more. He didn't need anyone's permission. He didn't have to wait for a network's approval. He could record a video in the morning and upload it the same day. He could speak directly to his fans. And it worked. His YouTube audience started growing. Even while the TV show was delayed, his videos kept getting views. People weren't just coming to see the cars, they wanted to see him. The real Chad. The unfiltered version. YouTube gave Chad the space to be honest. He didn't need fancy editing or dramatic music. He could talk about burnout. He could talk about stress. He could talk about what it's really like when the cameras are off and the bills still need to be paid. He began posting different kinds of content, answering questions, talking about life, even discussing mental health and the emotional side of creativity. The videos weren't perfect. Sometimes they were shaky or went off topic. But that's why people liked them. They felt real. Felt like Chad was sitting across from them just talking.